friends, today I'm going to review The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. I received the luck of this through Edelweiss in exchange for an honest review, and this book is released on March 5th. The Queen's Resistance is the sequel to The Queen's Rising, and I also did a review of that last year when it came out. So if you haven't yet read The Queen's Rising and you're kind of wanting to, find out if you'd be interested in reading this series, I'm going to leave a link in the description and in the info card so you can check that out. This video will not have any significant spoilers for the first book though, except for, I'll obviously talk about some characters, like you will know if they are alive, but I will not spoil any big events for the first book. So if you're watching this video because you want to find out if you're interested in picking up the series, you can also watch this if you're not too sensitive about spoilers. Honestly, I don't even have that much to say. This book really picks up basically right where The Queen's Rising left off. It's interesting to me, and I think actually very well done, that The Queen's Rising very much felt like a book that you could totally read as a standalone, but still this book picks up almost immediately after The Queen's Rising ended, and I really enjoy that. I think that was very well done, and I mean in general I just truly enjoyed this so much, and I loved it just as much, if not even a little bit more, than I loved The Queen's Rising. And everything that I said in my review for The Queen's Rising absolutely still stands for The Queen's Resistance as well. So that is definitely my overall thoughts, and I'm gonna try and go into a little bit of detail of what I thought about it, but for the most part I just think that it was an amazing sequel. It is such a well done continuation of the story. This is definitely my perfect kind of sequel because it takes the basic layer from the first book and then just builds up on top, and I thought that it was incredibly well done. I also thought that what Rebecca Ross really was able to nail was to kind of make us remember the events of the first book. I am a very, very forgetful reader, and I went into this and I realized I literally don't remember anything. But Rebecca Ross had a very good way of telling us the events from the first book without it feeling out of the story, without it feeling boring or it was dragging. I think it was very smooth, and it just really worked for me and really made me remember all of the events of the first book. I thought that The Queen's Rising was one of the best debuts that I have ever read. I think that the writing, the storyline, the world building, everything in it was absolutely amazing, but I still think that you could really tell that Rebecca Ross has also improved as a writer. You can also tell this is her second novel, and I just really love that, being able to tell that a writer has improved since their first novel, that you also feel like my feeling was that she was maybe a little bit braver. She was ready to put some more things in there, and I thought that was really great to just see this improvement. And at the same time, this book was still very simplistic. I think that Rebecca Ross doesn't need to rely on any kind of intense tropes or any kind of intense drama, and my god, do I love me a good dramatic trope. But it's also very refreshing to read this book that feels very simplistic and doesn't have any of these things, and at the same time is still full of surprising twists. Or maybe that's even why it's full of surprising twists, because it does not give us the same old tropes that we're kind of used to from YA fantasy, but it's kind of we're not really sure what to expect because she's not relying on these things that we already know. I just love that this story doesn't have these things, and also it doesn't need these things. There's no point in this book that drags, that is boring, that, where you are oh, I wish there would be some annoying trope in here just to keep it fresh and exciting. The book doesn't need that. I love that. That makes me so happy. I also really love the world, and I'm so glad that we, saw more of this world, that we really got into the politics of this world. And this is really a world where I'm excited to see what is gonna happen in the third book, but I also hope that even after this trilogy has ended, that Rebecca Ross will return to this world, because I think it's a brilliant world, and I think that there's so much still left to explore. So I really, really hope that even after the next book, this is not going to be the end of this world, because I really came to love this, and I really want to return to it again and again. But I think despite everything I've just mentioned, and despite me loving everything, the strongest aspect of this series is for sure the characters and their relationships. The found family theme was still super strong throughout this novel, which honestly I didn't really expect that. I didn't really expect this to still like focus so much on that, but still, it was still so much there. And I also really love the romance. As someone who like loves romance so much, I almost thought this could have had more scenes, like romantic scenes between Brianna and Cartier. Like, I really almost am craving more. And that makes me think that there's probably a lot of readers out there who maybe are not so much into romance who will still be very, very happy with this novel, because the romance is never at the forefront. There's some really great scenes, like the scenes that do happen are beautiful and wonderful and make me emotional, but it's not like it just drowns you in the romantic feelings. I think it is very laid back. As I said, for me, I almost want more because I love them. And I think what really sets this sequel apart from the first book, and that's kind of what I meant when I said it felt like Rebecca Ross was a little bit braver, is that this has a lot more dark themes and topics in there. I don't really want to go into detail because I think it's something that you should just explore, you know, for yourself. But I think this is what I mean when I say like it still had the basic layer of the first book, but then it built up on top of it, and it was just able to focus on some more like dark events and stuff like that because we already had the basic layer of it. And I thought that everything was handled very well, even though there were some really, really dark things in there. And if you have potential triggers, I'm gonna leave trigger warnings in the description down below so you can check them out, because there's really some super intense things in this book, and it does get kind of like gruesome as well. So if you have any triggers, there are a list of them in the description. But I thought that even though it was so dark and so gruesome at times, it was handled so well and just really worked with the story. So yeah, these are my thoughts on The Queen's Resistance. I truly loved it, and this really kind of manifested my love for this series as a whole too. I'm so excited to see what Rebecca Ross does in the third book, and in general, this has me so excited for everything else that Rebecca Ross is gonna write. Like, she's truly becoming one of my favorite authors. Now I obviously want to know your thoughts. If you've already read the book, I want to know what you thought of it, if you liked it as much as I did, and if you haven't yet, I want to know your excitement about it and what you're kind of expecting or what you kind of want from this book after The Queen's Rising. And yeah, I make new videos every Wednesday and Sunday with occasional reviews on Friday, so click subscribe to never miss anything and hit the little bell so you get notified as well. And thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!